Hi everybody, we're back on air, my Beatles collection. And this is part 2 of my Beatles fantasy sleeves, picture sleeves collection. This is the Capitol stuff. I've already been through the Apple and all the miscellaneous US labels, Tolly, Swan, VJ, and of course they're fantasy versions of those sleeves. Today I'm going to do the Capitol, and I have about as many Capitol as I have of all the other labels. So, but some of these are really nice. A lot of these were designed when the, there's the color vinyl singles that came out in the 90s. And there are some folks that do high quality picture sleeves that matched the catalog numbers so that you would have a sleeve to go with those. Those color vinyl 45s all came in a plain white sleeve. So, if you happen to have, some of these, color vinyls and you need a sleeve, a lot of these came out with the intention of matching up to that. And of course, they're all fantasy sleeves, so none of these exist in the real, true commercial world. But anyway, I'm going to go through them quickly and show you what they look like. Here's a great one for Love Me Do, and P.S. I Love You. And again, they have the, they have the catalog number there. So, and here's Twist and Shout. Another interesting sleeve, and this is backed with There's a Place. Jumping all around time-wise, this is While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Sorry. And Blackbird with a piece of the White Album poster. That is one of the 45s in color vinyl that was not released as a 45 back in the day. This one is for Fool on the Hill. So it says Magical Mystery Tour. It looks like the Magical Mystery Tour EP cover. And then on the other side, you got Fool on the Hill. Here's one for Yellow Submarine and Eleanor Rigby. Eleanor Rigby gets top billing on the B-side. It's All Too Much. And It's Only a Northern Song. Hello, Goodbye. And I Am the Walrus, both with, Magical Mystery Tour references in the pictures. Here's Hello Goodbye again, with a different cover this time. Same B-side, though. Here's a bunch of Sgt. Pepper's. Here's one, and has the lyrics on the back like the album, and Paul is facing out. Of course, that's a different pose with, John leaning on the drum and all that. It's a different pose than the actual Sgt. Pepper cover. Here's one that just features Paul right in the middle, Ringo over here. Same two songs with the lyrics. Paul is kind of sideways on this one. This is one of my favorites. I hope you can see that. This is kind of 3D. Everything in the background is blurry and the Beatles are not. I love this sleeve. I got this a long time ago, separate and apart from all these others. I think I paid a little bit more for it. I'm going to take it out of the plastic here because I want to see if you can see it on the screen, what it looks like without the plastic. You see that? How it kind of looks 3D because everything else is blurry but the Beatles and the flowers and the drum. Now, the other side of the sleeve is stupid looking, I think. Of course, it's another pose, but I really love that one. Here's one that doesn't reference any record. It just says the Beatles. Here's one that references Capitol Records, but doesn't name a song. Down at the bottom, though, it says, watch for the new Beatles LP, Rubber Soul. Of course, again, it's fantasy, so this one looks a lot like the original All You Need Is Love sleeve, but different colors and different poses. Baby, You're a Rich Man. This one looks a lot like the Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields one, but obviously it's not original. Day Tripper, and We Can Work It Out. Now, I said it in the previous video. Of course, the legitimate versions of these, if there is one, I have all of them. I have every American sleeve. But anyway, I like the fantasy sleeves as well. I don't do anything with them for the most part. I just keep them stored with all my other stuff. This is the same style as the paperback rider sleeve, but it's obviously not the same exactly. There's Nowhere Man and What Goes On. We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper. Can't Buy Me Love and You Can't Do That. A Hard Day's Night. Things We Said Today. A Hard Day's Night. Things We Said Today. This one with the cartoon Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand. This boy. This looks a lot like the original 8 Days a Week, but it's not. And I don't want to spoil the party. In the same style of that, here's I Feel Fine. And She's a Woman. Now, these are not intended to fool anybody. They're clear that those pictures are not the same pictures that were used, but the sleeve is in the same style. And every place that I bought them, they were clearly identified as fantasy sleeves. Not that I would be fooled, because I have all the original, actual, official sleeves. This is Matchbox and Slow Down. This is And I Love Her and If I Fell. This is I'll Cry Instead and I'm Happy Just to Dance with You. She Loves You and I'll Get You. No, She Loves You wasn't originally on Capitol in the U.S., so it was on Swan. Anyway, here's Please Please Me with From Me to You. Here is Matchbox. And that's the Ed Sullivan Show set. And here are the Beatles overhead from that same set. Here's Matchbox. That looks like the Washington Coliseum concert, possibly. Slow Down is the back side of that one. Here is Slow Down featured as the A side, which of course was not the case. Here is Slow Down in Matchbox again. Here is I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I saw her standing there with the Beatles or Meet the Beatles cover. Here's a very cheap looking I Want to Hold Your Hand. Not even a good copy of a copy. Most of these are really high quality. That one isn't too great. Of course, Can't Buy Me Love is one of the most valuable U.S. Capitol sleeves. It doesn't look anything like this. But again, they're not trying to fool you. They might be trying to fool you with this one. This one looks a lot like it, although it's not that close. But nonetheless, and here's another Can't Buy Me Love. Here's A Hard Day's Night with I Should Have Known Better. Here's another Hard Day's Night with I Should Have Known Better. Here's Help with an actual picture from Help. Here's Yesterday with the Beatles playing some kind of wood instruments, I think. Act Naturally and Yesterday. Here's a butcher cover for Nowhere Man. That's different than the... No, actually, I think that's the actual one that was used for the album cover as well. Got to Get You Into My Life, back with Helter Skelter. Penny Lane with Strawberry Fields Forever. Sort of a play on the With the Beatles cover, only older Beatles. Here's Sexy Sadie with Dear Prudence. Yellow Submarine doesn't reference Eleanor Rigby, which would have been the other side. Here's a cool picture, Paperback Writer in Rain. Some people think that's the greatest single ever. Paperback Writer in Rain. Some people think it's Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields, but Paperback Writer in Rain again. Paperback Writer in Rain again. This is trying to repro the Starline series. Here's Paperback Writer in Rain again. That's the same one we saw before. Here's another Paperback Writer with Rain. I don't know what the heck they have over their heads there. A lot of sleeves. Ticket to Ride, and yes it is, Beatles Live there. Another Ticket to Ride. I like this one a lot. Another Ticket to Ride. Kind of a pencil drawing. Another Ticket to Ride. Kind of a Rubber Soul style shot. Obviously it's not the Rubber Soul picture, but kind of that style. This is just the Beatles on Capitol Records. No song referenced. Beatles available on Capitol Records. Again, no song reference. Here's another one, The World's Most Popular Foursome. No song reference on that one. This one refers to the album, Something New, which was the third U.S. Capitol album. That was Capitol had some Hard Day's Night stuff on there because they didn't have rights to the Hard Day's Night album. That was the United Artists soundtrack. This is not the real cover of 4 by the Beatles, but 4 by the Beatles was one of 2 Capitol EPs, both of which are on my wall over my left shoulder, along with the VJ EP. Here's another variation on a Butcher. Black and white, different pose, Yesterday and Today. Of course, there was no 45 named Yesterday and Today, but that's all right. Once Upon a Time, I'm not sure where they're going with that, but again, no song reference. No song reference here either, but Meet the Beatles is referred to here. And here's another Meet the Beatles like sleeve. No song reference. Here's a reference to the Beatles cartoon. Sorry, I'm having trouble. And it refers to ABC, which is American Broadcasting Company, and Capitol Records. It says not for sale down in the corner. Actually, none of these should have been for sale. I like this plain Beatles on Capitol sleeve as well. Of course, that's what we grew up with here in the States, Beatles on Capitol, until there was Apple. Here's another generic Beatles on Capitol. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest band of all? The Beatles. Can't argue with that. Read all about it. Best-selling band in the world. Beatles. Here's another Meet the Beatles. I want to hold your hand, and I saw her standing there. The Beatles today, with a picture from the studio. These next 1, 2, 3, these next 6 are all the same style, different titles. Roll Over Beethoven and Misery. Twist and Shout and There's a Place. Thank You Girl and Do You Want to Know a Secret? Love Me Do and P.S. I Love You. Kansas City and Boys. And Kansas City and Boys again. Then I finally have 2 that have nothing to do with anything else except their Halloween. Beatles, Happy Halloween. And that's the B-side of that. And here's the other Beatles, Happy Halloween. And both sides are the same. So that is it for my Capitol Fantasy sleeves. A whole bunch of them. I hope you enjoyed those. In my previous video, I showed under the Apple Fantasy sleeves, I showed this Now and Then sleeve. I didn't show this one. This one has the Now and Then clock, which I also have a replica of that clock here in my room. And I kind of like that sleeve. And then this has the same B side as the other one, but two different covers. This is what the official one looked like. This is what the other one looked like. This is the fantasy one. A lot of people said that they liked that one better. They didn't get the clock. They didn't quite understand the backstory until Olivia Harrison mentioned that they saw that clock in a store and they bought it and put it on their mantle. And when Paul started working on redoing Now and Then, he mentioned it to Olivia, wanted her sign off on it, if you will. And she heard the title of the song, and she happened to be looking at the clock up on the mantle that said Now and Then. And she took that as a sign that this is right. This is a thing to do. So she gave the go-ahead, and of course the song was a hit. It was #1, actually. So that was good. And everybody seemed to like the song, and not too many people complained about it being, John being raised from the dead, or, some crazy thing. Some people loved Free as a Bird. Some people loved Real Love. Some people love Now and Then. And some people don't like any of them, or they don't like them called the Beatles. But all the Beatles are on every one of those songs, even if they weren't all in the studio at the same time. So it is what it is. I'm happy we got all three. The world is a better place because we have all three of them, and I'm happy about that. Anyway, that's it for the Beatles fantasy sleeves on Capitol. So that's part 2 of my fantasy sleeves, and we'll be moving on soon to other 45s and some of the more official and maybe a little more obscure and rare and valuable stuff. So that'll be coming up pretty soon. So that's it for today. If you like this video, hit the like button. And if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. And I hope to see you back here soon. And we'll be trying to pump out some more videos and share all this collection. I got a room full of stuff here. I hope I live long enough to show you all of it, but probably won't because there's a lot of stuff here. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the videos, and I'll see you next time. Take care.